Hey guys, Josh Crutcher here, CPA and Dave Ramsey's ELP here in Nashville and Franklin. I just wanted to reach out to you guys and give you guys some explanations about some of the new tax legislation that you're seeing. There's lots of things going on. There's lots of things to talk about. I want to keep you guys in the loop, and also feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Right now, email's probably the best, but yeah, feel free to reach out with me to me if you have any questions, and I'm here to help you guys. I hope you guys are finding a way to get out from quarantine and maybe get a breath of fresh air and social distance yourself and still find a way to put some smiles on your faces. I know we went out for a ride in our Bronco today, and it was nice to see a lot of the families just walking together. Saw lots of smiles, lots of kids. Uh, Maybe it's tough for them to understand what exactly is going on now. Dads and moms throwing baseballs to them out in the field. It was kind of nice to see people getting out together. But yeah, try to find some positive things and stay focused. Who knows how long this is going to last? Hopefully, not too long. But it will end at some point, and we'll get back to somewhat of a semblance of our normal lives. But I hope you guys are taking care of yourselves and doing well. Um, so a couple things that I was really wanting to talk to you guys about and keep you posted on is that there's about two pieces of things that are happening right now. You guys have probably heard, about some of the tax changes and the stimulus checks. You've also probably heard about the SBA loans and how they're trying to help small businesses retain employees and keep their staff. So basically, we're going to have one presentation where we talk about the tax pieces, and then we'll have another presentation, and we'll call that part two, where we talk about some of these loan pieces that are more geared towards businesses. Now, there will be some individual piece, so if you are an employee, it may be worthwhile to listen to that, but at the same time, most of that is going to be geared for the businesses. So today we're going to talk about part one, taxes. Tell you a little bit about where we are as far as our tax timeline goes. For many of you, you've already filed a return. Some of you are still waiting for your returns, and some of you guys still haven't gotten them to me yet, and that's still okay. But we'll talk about the tax prep. We'll talk about stimulus checks and some other tax changes that have happened over the last few weeks with the release of some of these new laws. So the timing of your tax return, you guys may be aware, the tax season has automatically been extended. So there's no action on your part. That is for both payments and for the filing. So instead of 4/15, where your payments are due, and your tax returns due, that has been extended to 7/15, and so just to get that squared away right off the bat. And for those that have already given me information and that are wondering what the timing looks like as far as when you're going to receive your tax return, typically, we quote for new clients 2 to 3 weeks, existing clients that's 1 to 2 weeks. With these new tax law changes and with these new SBA regulations coming out, that has had to change. We're getting dozens of calls every day about that, in particular for the businesses and how they can help their employees. Contractors, restaurants, trying to retain their employees, going into curbside services, delivery services. I've got a lot of wedding photographers that have a lot of their future up in the air. We got doctors, builders, retailers that have staff. There's just lots of different people, not only business owners but their employees, that have a lot of questions and question marks, and that's where the part two comes in, where we try to highlight some of those opportunities for those business owners and kind of give them some direction on where to go, so they can in turn help their employees. And those programs have been constantly changing. We had a presentation ready to go Thursday night, and I was on the phone with one of the BPs here in Nashville, one of the banks, and right when we were on the phone, they received an email from the SBA outlining some changes to the program. And so that was just Thursday evening. And so things are changing, and I expect things to continue to change. but I want to give you guys an update on where we stand right now. So, and that's what this tax presentation is going to be about. Talk a little bit about the relief. I know we talked about the automatic extension until July 15th. Again, there's no action required on your part. Now, if you wanted to do something, if you wanted to get an extension from that point, you can get an extension to file until October, but the payment would be due just as it usually would at 7/15. So keep that in the back of your mind. Another thing that's worth considering, since I do have a lot of you that are making estimated payments, some of you are self-employed that are making quarterly estimated payments for your taxes. This extends the payment deadline for your final payment and your first quarter estimate for 2020. Now, for some of you, you might have fairly large balances due to pay. It does not mean that they're going to forgive any penalties and interest on your 2019 first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter payment. I haven't seen anything delineates that, and my gut feeling is that you're still going to have to pay interest and penalties on that. So the sooner you get in your money and pay, you may be able to do yourself be able to benefit from interest and penalties there. So. Estimated payments, the first quarter still due on July 15th. As of right now, so what happens is when they put a law in place, they're going to send this legislation to the Internal Revenue Service, where these guys are going to write the code, and basically the law says this is what we want to happen. They're going to formalize it and look at all the various impacts of it and say, well, this needs to change, this needs to change, and this needs to change. So currently, right now, second quarter estimates are due June 15th, and that hasn't changed, even though the first quarter estimates are due July 15th. Now, there's some workarounds for that, but just it's kind of a good example of how they're still dotting their I's and crossing their T's, and it's going to be a long process for that. So just keep that in the back of your mind. HSAs, IRAs, those contributions, you can still make those up to July 15th. Worth considering there too. And interest and penalties will begin accruing as of July 16th. So the 2020 stimulus payments, what's this going to look like? So basically, they added a new section to the tax code. That's not important to you guys, but basically, what is important to know is this is essentially an advance payment for 2020, and it's based on 2019 or 2018, kind of like what we talked about earlier. So what happens is just say that you're going to get, you're single and that you're going to get $1,200. When you file your 2020 tax return, there's going to be a schedule in there where they're going to ask you, how much did you receive in advance payments? You'll put $1,200 there, and basically they're going to say, here's how much, based on your 2020 return, here's how much you should have received, $1,200. It's going to net to zero, and you're good to go. Right now, there's nothing that says that if you didn't earn that $1,200, say you shouldn't have received anything, that they're going to recoup that $1,200. That's a possibility, but right now there's nothing in play that says that that's going to happen. You would think that would be the case, but I don't know. So ideally, right now as it's written, there is no offset to recoup that $1,200 when you end up receiving it. If you're married filing jointly, that'll be $2,400, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. And like I said earlier, you're going to look at your 2019 return first, then your 2018 return, and then if you've got if you receive Social Security, that's going to be automatically. I believe it's going to be direct deposited into your bank account for Social Security, just like your Social Security check is. So that should be pretty common for you guys. And here's the payment amounts. So for single, $1,200, married, $2,400, and for each child under the age of 17, you're looking at $500 each. So that's what the stimulus payment looks like. They're they're like I said, consider what tax year they may be looking at. So for a joint return, uh, where you guys earned $150,000, it's going to begin to start being phased out. So that's going to be reduced pro rata up until you get to $198,000, of which you'd receive zero. And the same goes for if you're a single, that's $75,000. So worth considering there, and something to think about. Um, so for example, if you had a gross income of $50,000, A is entitled to receive a check for $1,200. Relatively straightforward. B is a single taxpayer who has not yet received or filed a 2019 return. In 2018, he had Social Security income of $10,000. As a result, he did not file a tax return because his didn't need to. His income was less than the $12,000 standard deduction. The IRS will access B's Social Security statement and issue him a check for $1,200. Nothing to do there either. H and W are married with 3 children, assuming that they qualify, which the income of $60,000 would qualify for the full amount. They would get 3 kids, $500 each, $1,500, $2,400, $1,200 for each of them. $2,400 plus $1,500 is the $3,900 that they would receive for the stimulus payment. So, yeah. So, as I mentioned, so what happens in 2020 when you file your 2020 tax return? We're going to find out a lot more about that, what that schedule looks like. But as of right now, the credit may be reduced, but it can't be reduced below zero, and they don't really have anything mechanically in place, to get that money back from you. So, and again, that could change, but as of right now, what you receive is what you will end up keeping. So, a couple other changes worth talking about. Retirement plans. I know, we are going through a rocky road right now, especially when you consider what the stock market's done. Peaking around 29,000, and now it's sitting at about 21,000. Looking at the Dow Jones Industrial Index, so you're down, roughly 25% there, 7,500 points. So, so what does that? If you think through that, you're going to be, if you were to take money out of the stock market right now, you're really taking it out of potentially one of the, if you're looking at a roller coaster, the only time you ever really lose money is when you get off that roller coaster. And if it's down here at the bottom, you're going to be taking that money out before it has a chance to get back up. So my thoughts would be is if you can get by without touching this money, that would be my greatest recommendation. Even though they did remove the 10% penalty for taking a distribution, and this can be replenished. But also note there are some criteria on being able to take that. If you're diagnosed with COVID-19, or a spouse or dependent was diagnosed, those are some of the qualifications. And they've got some other qualifications, which I'm sure they'll have some final examples in the legislation that comes out about adverse financial consequences as a result of being quarantined, etc. So, let's see. This is talking about the repayment period. Typically, if you took it out and you got a 60 day window if you wanted to replenish those funds. Or to have income recognition. So basically, what this is saying is that, so if you took $100,000 out, you can repay that distribution, and I believe what they're saying is that can be prorated over 3 years. So you've got 3 years to pay that back and avoid paying tax on it. This is a new and really beneficial for not necessarily lower income taxpayers, but taxpayers that typically don't itemize, and that may give a lot of charity, but still would be taking the standard deduction. If you're married and you're renting, you don't have mortgage interest or real estate taxes, but say you give $8,000 to charity, you're not really getting any tax benefit from those charitable contributions. Basically, what this law does is cash contributions up to $300 will be deductible as an above the line deduction. So some folks that don't necessarily contribute a lot, they'll end up getting a deduction for say a $300 contribution they make throughout the year. So that's all that is. And federal student loan relief. This is something that's worth mentioning. This was effective March 13th, and there is action required on your part for pieces of this, and other pieces I do not believe there's actions required, and you want to check up on that. For example, I believe the interest is automatically suspended, but double check on that. Now you can also request for to suspend your student loan payments. Right now, you can do it for 60 days from March 13th, but you have to be proactive and call the Department of Education and ask them to suspend those. That's not something that they're going to automatically do for you. So you can suspend them, make the payments, everything will go against, if you still decide to make the payments, everything would go against your principal. And this only applies to federal loans. So if you have private loans, for example, with Chase or Bank of America, the suspension and the interest waiver is not going to apply to those loans. So if you have any questions regarding that, I'll have a blog post up, and you can feel free to shoot me an email as well. But I encourage you to if you feel like you need to that's an option that you can use to take advantage of if your income's and your financial security has been impacted. So, well, that's really it, guys. 17 minutes. Again, here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm here to help, and be looking out for the second video regarding some of these SBA programs that might be able to help your business, the owners individually, and also the employees, help keep those employees employed, and we'll talk about some of those programs available to you. All right, guys, talk soon. Stay safe.